back.
Thank you for joining us. This is part 4, Salt of the Streets, episode 125. Thank you for joining us again on our youtube.com/saltofthestreets. We also have our Facebook, facebook.com/saltofthestreets, instagram.com/saltofthestreets, and of course our Patreon, patreon.com/saltofthestreets, where you can go there, become a patron, help us make more, better content like the book club, the beer shows, the newsletters that come out on the last day of the month, and the review previews that come out the first day of the month. Outside of that, we have our personal social media. I am at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. And Colin is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. You can find all of this on saltofthestreets.com, including Swell Blended if you need a haircut, Location Skate Shop in downtown Bremerton if you need a skateboard, Lex and Kyle on Twitch if you want to watch some video games, and leggings and aprons in a few months if you need some baked goods. Believe that is everything. So,
I believe so.
With that, part 4, Ivan is going to talk to us about macroeconomics. So I only have 2 questions, I think, before we're just gonna, just let you go. So I'll just ask them to you both. The first question is, what is macroeconomics? And then the second question would be, what are your credentials? So why should we believe what you are saying? Because obviously none of the audience knows who you are.
Yeah, no problem. So my first of all, my credentials. I'm going to do last question first.
Yep.
This is why you should listen to me.
This is why you should listen to me. You shouldn't listen to or hear what I have to say.
There you go.
But
it's a good way to listen.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all the sources that I am speaking from, so that you can do your own due diligence. In case you don't believe anything that I am going to say, because things are going to get a little bit outlandish. My background is not in economics. It's not in policy, I did actually study environmental policy in college, Spanish and history. But the finance side of things, I absolutely hated. So my undergrad was in environmental history and policy, Spanish and history.
Before you get going, where did you go to school, by the way, if you don't mind sharing? Just mostly out of curiosity.
I went to school at Central Iowa University, and I started my master's at Iowa State.
Nice.
Word.
Iowa boy.
Yeah. Well, so because of Title IX, I was not allowed to wrestle in at the collegiate level because they got rid of wrestling in Washington State.
What?
A lot of interesting things happen with that, and I want to stick to economics.
We'll have you back to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yes, that one is a very personal burn for me because
we'll make that a Patreon only segment. You got to pay for that one.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Get behind the paywall, folks.
Yeah. But so a lot of this is kind of come to me through my own research, and particularly over the course of the past 2.5 years, particularly after the whole COVID shutdown. You can ask anyone in my family, Zeke, Marcus, or anyone. Right after that happened, it was a massive red flag to me that something else was going on. Like we talked about before, we had the show start. I don't believe anything that mainstream media tells you. I honestly do believe that there's tons of red herrings out there, and look over here, and then the real action is happening over here. So it made me want to dive into what really was going on. And this is kind of my whole journey is how I'm going to kind of take you guys through this. It's a little bit scattered. It jumps back and forth, but at the same time, it's how it was my what's the word discovery cycle. So this is how I discovered all of this information.
And that's generally realistic and relatable to people. It doesn't usually come to you as a single solid flow. It's you maneuvering and navigating life that gets you the experience that sends you down the paths we go.
Right. And once you do have a certain vision of something, then it becomes something that you can't look away from. You always notice it thereafter, but you have to have your point of realization in order to get that established. But so after I graduated from Central Iowa, there was no jobs in 2012 because middle of the downturn, right? I went back to school, started my master's in oh my gosh, business leadership. Excuse me. So that's what that's what I was doing my studying in. Didn't finish because I actually got hired by an ag chem company by the name of Adama, which is an Israeli company. It's a sister company of Syngenta, which I'll get into here in a little bit. If you guys have ever heard of Syngenta, it's definitely one that you should look into because it's a very big deal.
Literally noted.
It's a well, I'll get into it here in a second. So we got into the so I was hired after a few months of going through this process. Ended up in Triangle Park in North Carolina, and there was a whole huge learning curve because I didn't know ag chemicals. I didn't know. I'm not a chemical engineer. Didn't have any formal agronomy background or anything like that. Zeke and I were not from the ag community.
Agronomy is the study of agriculture?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. So
I've
this is
never
like
heard that term before.
we talk like fertilizers and growing nutrients and things like that. This is very new territory for me.
Okay. And this is going to be very informative for you then.
Good. I'm very excited.
So a lot of people don't understand that fertilizers, ag chemicals, seeds, growing techniques, iron sellers, the John Deeres, the Case, the Kubota, New Holland, all of these major companies. It's all been consolidated down. I'm sure that you've heard of Monsanto and all these sorts of companies, right?
Yes.
That was the negative press that got pulled into ag that everyone kind of pictures in their mind.
Yeah. Which is scary because it's always like a fraction of what the real problem is.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly right.
Great.
And what compounds the problem is that no one understands where their food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know anything about it.
Yep.
You just know that you're like Stacey Abrams here in Georgia, the crazy lunatic.
You mean the legitimately elected governor, right?
I'm talking about the one who's running for governor who thinks that all food comes from the store. And she doesn't know why people, why I think the number, most of the state's GDP comes from ag. She just thinks it's a bunch of gun-toting rednecks that like to drive around tractors in the South Georgia. It's like
idiots.
She's completely clueless.
That's why you have a steak and a loaf of bread.
That's right. That's right. So, once I got into Adama, I slowly started to figure out why, what was what, how, because when you're in school, you're completely solely taught that the world is overpopulated. There's not enough food. There's not enough resources to go around, and there's an incredible need. There's no way to feed the world, right? Mm-hmm. And chemicals are bad, fertilizers are bad, X, Y, and Z.
And is this specifically like the ag, higher ed community? Is that essentially what's being taught there?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So they tell
absolutely.
us too, as the general public.
I'm old, remember. I barely learned how to count to 4, all right? They didn't teach me shit.
Yeah. I mean, this sort of thing, it's so pervasive in upper education, along with the ton of socialistic and quasi communistic ideas. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely stupid. That's why I'm very ardently believe that upper education has been infiltrated by the extreme left, and is completely brainwashing generations of kids.
Yeah.
And that's
you
why
know
you're seeing
who
all
James
these
Lindsay
uprisings
is then.
Yeah. What was that?
You know who James Lindsay is then, I would imagine.
Actually, I don't.
Okay,
so write this down.
Perfect. James Lindsay.
Yeah, James Lindsay is the man, and his podcast is called New Discourses.
Yep.
Much like yourself, He's not from this field. He's a mathematician by trade, but has become incredibly activated in the Marxist influence in upper education and all the way down through like K through 12. So he's talking all about this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And we've referenced this many times, the Marxist influence in upper education specifically, but also as I've had children, and we know more people like Zeke that have had children, like you that have children, the influence in lower education as well becomes a big focus for us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You'll like that.
I'm going to be looking him up shortly. And I think that there's a marked reason for all of that stuff. I don't want to dive into the whole education side of things, but I will say there is a book by the name of Operation Paperclip by Ann Jacobson, she was a huge, she played a huge role in the Freedom of Information Act when the post-World War II date hit, where there's 50 years where they are allowed to keep classified certain information, lock it up and whatever. Anyway, so right when that date hit, she applied for all of that information, all of it. And she wrote 3 books on what she found. And it was terrifying.
So everything we know about Operation Paperclip now probably comes from her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, probably through one form or another.
Yeah.
But it was the Pentagon's Brain, Operation Paperclip, and Surprise Kill Vanish. But Operation Paperclip is an amazing, explains why there are marked tendencies towards communism and communistic ideals in upper education, because a lot of those professors, scientists, and people that were fleeing from Germany during World War II and illegally brought in by the government and placed in these positions,
Right.
i.e. The NASA. You guys have heard about the director of NASA, him being a straight up Nazi, even with a dueling scar and everything. Like, it's crazy. Anyways, a lot of the 50s, 60s professors in upper education were truly, honest to God, Nazis, defectors, and people that were brought over by the United States government. Whole separate subject, sidestep. Sorry. So getting back into agriculture, there is a ton of top-down buying. So there's been a bunch of smaller companies that went and bought another, right? And I'm sure that everyone has heard about Monsanto going through and patenting life, right? The original patenting of life in the 90s, or I think it was even the 80s, 89, I think, when Monsanto went through, they patented a seed technology, and they said, okay, this is our technology, right? It's no longer food, it is now technology, right? And then that led to this huge just explosion of buying. So once you can prove that your genetics are in something else, you can start buying certain other genetic traits, properties, and basically what has ended up happening is you basically start buying up the food supply, right? So
like via the genetic route,
via the genetics.
So like
Now,
Jurassic World type shit.
The type of seeds.
Except it's food.
Yeah,
except it's food.
I read a book once, so I guess I want to ask you about this because I think it lends to what you're talking about. When I was still in high school, a book about Indian farmers killing themselves because they were growing a crop and their neighbor had Monsanto seeds and the seeds would blow over into their fields, and because they had not purchased the Monsanto seeds, they did not have the rights to own them, and they were found out, they were sued by the companies, and then their whole livelihood went under, and instead of doing whatever, having to take out more loans or whatever, they killed themselves. Jesus. There was like a huge rash of this happening. This is like the same type of deal that you're talking about?
Exactly the same. And I'll go even one further. So in particular, corn is one of the most promiscuous plants in in the plants in the commodity spectrum. It is very, very, very virulent. So if you have one male stalk and a receptor in another field that doesn't belong to you, if that seed plasm ends up on that other tassel across the road over there, that is now owned by Monsanto. Your crop that you just planted that didn't even need to have Monsanto seed. If it mated with Monsanto germplasm, it is now their crop because it's going to throw off more their genetics, right? So, anyways, we're getting into it now. The whole craziness of this is Monsanto, Bayer, BASF, DuPont, which is now Corteva, and Syngenta. There's a handful of companies that are out there, and Pioneer.
Did
Pioneer.
DuPont? I'm sorry, not to interrupt. Did DuPont get bought out by Corteva, or did they just change their name?
They merged.
They merged with
DuPont,
Corteva.
Dow and DuPont merged, and they split up into a few different companies. So
Okay.
Corteva is the agricultural side, and
Okay.
I think that there's another one for Dow DuPont.
Okay.
Now this is where stuff gets really crazy. So you're going to start seeing a lot of overlap here. Syngenta. So all of those companies work in specific commodity spectrums: rice, wheat, corn, soy, all sorts of stuff like that, right? Now, there's Syngenta that works in vegetable seeds and fruit seeds, right? And then there's others that work in apples and mangoes and everything. They've commoditized everything. They bought it up and they're selling it. They're monetizing life, right? Syngenta, or excuse me, my company, the one that I worked for, was owned by it's called the Coors Group out of Israel. They sold the controlling rights to China. It was owned by the Chinese government. It is owned by the Chinese government now, but the Coors Group still has a minor interest in it. Okay.
Right.
Now, in 2017 or 18, I think it was 17, the Chinese government went and they bought Syngenta. Syngenta is the largest life patenting company on the planet. They have a chemical library of more than, I think it's like 2 million AIs, and an AI is an active ingredient for chemistry, right? And that's the crop protection, the stuff that makes up insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, sterilants, everything, like all sorts of different stuff that you use to protect crops, right?
Control the crops.
Control the crops, growth inhibitors, hormones, the whole nine yards.
Because that's why people want Monsanto seeds, right? Or seeds from any of these various companies, is because they have these different active ingredients in them that make them resistant to certain chemicals or bugs, or make them grow bigger, or whatever the fuck, right?
Right. So, but some of these seeds actually have these traits built into the seed itself,
Right.
and then some of them don't have it. They just have the chemistry that they put on top of it.
Interesting.
Okay.
Right. So Roundups, there's Roundup Ready corn, for an example. So when you put Roundup on corn, it doesn't kill the corn, but it kills everything else all around it.
Oh.
Then there's IVs. There are not IVs. I'm blanking on the terminology. It's an insect repellent. So whenever a mealworm bites into a corn stalk, it kills the mealworm, but it doesn't kill us when we eat it.
But we still ingest
It's really
it.
kind of crazy. It's really, yeah, no,
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Chinese government bought Syngenta, which owns the most vegetable seed technology in the whole world. It took them, I think, a little over a year for the SEC to approve it. Right? They were based out of Basel, Switzerland. It was a Swiss company. Huge. I think it was the largest single buyout in world history at that point.
Good Lord.
It went largely unnoticed. Now, the reason why this was so crazy is because of what's going on right now. Food insecurities, China isn't able to feed its people, or wasn't able to feed its people. They had huge famine problems. They didn't have access to these technologies, right? So once I switched companies after working for them in Florida, I worked with tomatoes, peppers, uh, oh my gosh, everything, any tropical, subtropical, vegetable, fruit that you can think of.
What were you doing with them?
So I was consulting. I was actually selling chemicals, some new chemicals that were coming onto the market.
To
I was working
farmers?
with farmers. So in particular, had a nematicide. So before this, uh, before this product that I was helping bring to the market, there were fumigants. Uh, and what they used to do is they used to deep shank, which means like there's a large 3 foot long tines that were stuck into this really sandy loam soil,
Okay.
and they drag them across with the tractors. And at the tip there, it would release this liquid that would turn into a gas, and it would expand and kill anything. I mean, really, really noxious, horrible shit. Like truly. One of the interesting parts of this is that chemical. It's called telone, the biocide. It comes from a byproduct from the car industry, from the manufacturing of the dashboard on your car, right? So they collect all of that, and then they sell their trash to agriculture, right? They package it, they brand it, and then they sell it for top dollar to agriculture,
What do you use
right?
it for? Like just to
It's a
clear a
bio
field?
to completely sterilize the soil, because there are nematodes, there are diseases, viruses, there's fungus that all grow in these soils. So you have to
Dirt's dirty.
yeah, and you have to sterilize it before you actually start planting into the stuff.
Okay, then you
Otherwise,
can grow shit in it afterwards.
exactly.
Okay, okay.
So I was selling this stuff that completely does away with all of that.
Okay.
Whoa. Okay.
All right. So we haven't even gotten into the finance side of things. This is still the food chain
Yeah, yeah.
side of things.
This is
So
why I became a
Background.
hunter.
Okay. Yep.
So I was selling a product that got rid of all this shit, and did really, really well. Made a whole bunch of money. Did really well. Uh, After I was ready to stop getting taken advantage of by my employer, and taking advantage of like my willingness to work 24/7, 365. I was just going and getting it, right? I didn't really note too much else that was going on in the company, except for a handful of things that still to this day I don't understand how they knew what they knew. But so Adama was a multinational company. They had operations in every country in the entire world, everywhere. In 2017, they took a huge hit on their balance sheet, enormous hit, and it was because of the destabilization of the currency in Argentina.
Oh.
And I was sitting there and I didn't understand. I was like, well, why are we concerned about the currency in Argentina? Like, why are we taking a hit for something like that? Didn't understand it. So I just kind of noted that, and I, carried on with my duties. And then when was it? In 2000, and it was 2000. No, it was 2017, that same year, when the German Bundesbank uh, received their payment from the Fed for all of their reserves. Another thing that I noted, I was like, why would the Bundesbank want their gold back? Interesting. Carry on, right?
So this is the
And
Bundesbank buying back their gold from the Fed?
they they are taking possession of their gold. So post World War II, a whole bunch of countries gave, I guess they did, yeah, they gave their gold to both the Fed in New York and the LBMA and the in London. So London, France to a small extent, and in the Fed in New York. they're basically holding all of the world's gold, right? And a lot of people don't know this. That's why the US dollar is the world reserve currency. It's because we're holding all the gold. Our dollars are as good as gold, right? This this all changed. I'll kind of dive into this here in a little bit. So this is just something that I noted. Thought this was really weird. Like, why the hell would Germany want their gold back, right? So I leave the company. I start working for a technology company. I take over as the market development manager for a couple of new technologies, Trimble navigation and GPSing and automation of tractors and stuff.
Yeah, I know Trimble
So
a little bit.
you do know Trimble?
Yeah. Yeah, I work
There
in
you go.
land surveying, and Trimble is definitely a big GPS company.
So I did all of that. That's similar. We did rate controllers, I mean, not land leveling. That there was companies that did all the land leveling, but we did all of the installations and management of the towers and everything. So, and when I was working at this company that I got put on a board, and I got to figure out like a commodities board, and I was working with the Young Growers Initiative in Florida. And we got small little peeks behind the curtain into what kind of shortages there would be, that what kind of issues are going on, large and small. So, so I'm sitting there and we're going through a bunch of these meetings. I think it was in 2019, and there was a meeting that we're sitting in, and they were talking about how what was it? It was the repo market blew up. Like there was a bunch of money that wasn't at people's disposal that they needed. Right, it was their money. They had it in a bank, and
It's
it
my money
was
and I want it now.
yeah, and it was just not accessible. Like, and they needed this for the liquidity reasons so that they could, buy large amounts of commodities, or they could do their exchanges and whatever. And it was not it was not available. I sat there and I was like, okay, it was September 2019. That's when it was, September 2019. So I was sitting there and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. I wonder why that something like that would be happening. Again, I'm not a finance guy. I'm not big into anything at this point. So I don't know the right questions to ask. We all know what happened in March 2020, right? The market takes an enormous shit. Everyone starts freaking out. No one's working, right? I'm sitting there and I'm going, I wonder if these things are fucking related. So you can ask Zeke. I mean, I was sitting here and right away, my parents and everyone got on a big phone call, and we were all sitting there like, oh, this is terrible, blah blah blah. And I was just like, this is really fucking fishy. This is really, there's something really bad going on right now. What I come to find out is that, when was it? It was let me get it in my notes here. Was Oh, I watched a video from Finance, Liberty and Finance, where they were talking about the Basel III Accords and gold. And I was sitting there and I was just like, I wonder what this is all about. And I don't know, have you guys ever heard about the Basel III initiative? Basel
No.
III. Basel is, so remember, Syngenta is from Basel, Switzerland.
Okay.
And I didn't put these together until much, much later. But the Basel III Accords is basically reclassified gold as a tier one asset, which means that it was a tier 3 asset, which means that you can only put 60% or 70% of its value on your balance sheet, right?
Okay.
If you're a bank and you're holding it. So what everyone was doing is they were lending out their gold like crazy, because it didn't do them any good, because they could only hold 60 or 70% on their balance sheet,
Yeah.
right? So with this new initiative, they were now able to hold one for one. Gold is now is basically as good as money in the bank, right?
Which is essentially a 25% or so increase at the very least, right?
Exactly. So now there's no reason for these banks to be lending out this gold anymore.
Yeah.
And I got thinking, I was like, well, hold on a second. Didn't Germany just take back their gold? And then I did some really simple Googling, right? Why did they pull back their gold? And then I found out that in 2011, the United States did not allow the Bundesbank to go in and get an audit, make sure that their gold was there. Right? Interesting. The reason why they asked for repatriation was because they told the Bundesbank that it would take 7 years for them to get their gold back. Now, why in the world would the Bundesbank, or why in the world would the Fed take 7 years to give someone else their gold that you're holding in trust?
Right.
Remember,
if you have it on hand, why can't I have it right now?
Yep.
All times.
Bernie Madoff that shit.
Right. So right after 2011 happened, they freaked out. They said, we want our fucking gold back. And the United States went fucking like ultra silent. No problems. Nothing is going on here. No smoke and mirrors, right?
Yep. You remember that $20 I lent you last month? Can I get that back? Spend it.
Right. And when what also I ended up finding out thereafter is that the year before this, it was Bundesbank, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
Did the same thing. He asked for 80% of his gold, and they fought him on it for 5 years. They fought him and dragged their feet. And I was saying, that's fucking weird. Why would they be so hesitant to give people their gold back? Very interesting. And then in 2017, guess who else asked for their gold back? The whole rest of the fucking world. Venezuela, Turkey, Austria, Poland, Netherlands, France. Everyone freaked the fuck out. They're like, where the fuck is our gold? And this Basel III initiative, making gold one-to-one on people's balance sheet, and basically getting rid of the arbitrage opportunity for the rehypothecation of gold. So you can lend gold out and you can make a return on it, right? Now there's no more there's no more arbitrage there. So now everyone is taking their gold back.
Yeah, because if it's a one-to-one, there's no room for anybody to make money, so you get it back.
Exactly. So the whole world is now sitting here going, where the fuck's our money? And it's been taking a long time for us to present it. Now, this takes you down rabbit hole number one. Why gold? Why is this important? Right? Let me ask you guys a question. What do you know about gold?
Not shit. And I'm glad you're talking about this, because every time anyone talks about the end of the world, I struggle to understand why gold matters at all. Unless there still is a monetary system for us to be involved in, I struggle to understand why gold matters to me at all. Because I told you I bought bullets. Bullets and food seems like a better idea to me than gold. So tell me about gold. What do you know about gold?
You're gonna learn today, bud.
Yeah, right. And I've never really thought about this until now, but I'm trying to think of, we have a contemporary utilitarian use for gold in electronics. Okay, that's a checkbox, but that's not going to do anybody any good if the world falls to shit. So why would we care about that? Other than the fact that it's like through antiquity, gold has always kind of been a thing, and I'm asking myself why. Why were there gold Sesterces, and why did a lot of people put their little fucking dictator stamp or their emperor stamp on a little slab of gold? It's a soft metal, it's malleable, but I don't truly understand, other than the fact that it's just a random commodity that has demand, and generally has always had some kind of demand. Why is any commodity essentially have demand? I mean, food makes sense. It's that precious metals. Why? Other than like contemporary industrial uses that literally don't matter if shit hits the fan, because what are you going to do? Smelt it in your backyard? No, it's not going to put food on the table. Like, why is gold so important, Ivan?
Yeah, no. So these are questions that I'm being so serious when I say this. Before COVID, I didn't know anything about gold, and I didn't care about it. I'm very much like you guys. But what I come to find is that it's 5,000 years of trust.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've been, remember when we started out this conversation, it was a recency bias, right?
Yeah.
And complacency. So that is another string that you can pull through this conversation. It's before the US dollar, there was gold, there was silver. It was the end of the line. It was the ultimate payment of something. That's why they had the gold backed note, the silver backed note, because it was heavy to carry around. So you gave you a piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
And over time, they being the government, slowly tried to pull these important commodities out of circulation, right?
Yeah.
And they were successful in 2007 or in 1971, Nixon closed the gold window.
Yeah.
What was significant about this? Now, and so
Gave them control.
yeah, it gave them exactly. So post World War II, there was the Bretton Woods Agreement, which said that because the United States was an enormous benefactor, huge benefactor as far as who got paid what, because we only made shit for people when they paid us in gold. So we had a gold hoard that was 50 times larger than the next country in the whole world. We had 28,000 tons of gold post World War II.
Oh my God.
So we had
That's kind of like when Fort Knox became like a thing, right? That's why they made a James Bond movie about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is an enormous advantage that we had. So we had all of the gold. We're holding all the fucking chips, right? And the rest of the world says, hey, you're holding all of our fucking money. Granted, we gave it to you. We got what we asked for, but we need some sort of something to build on. We need something to build our countries back with. And we said, instead of going with a Keynesian economics system that they wanted, we went with a U.S.-based Bretton Woods gold-backed system, where our money was as good as gold. So if so what we said to the whole world is, you use our currency, and at any point in the life cycle of whatever, you can exchange our dollars for gold.
Yep.
And everyone was okay with that. They said,
get your gold back as long as you pay us in our currency.
Exactly.
I know where this is going. Oh.
Right. So we're going down this whole freaking rabbit hole. And what ended up happening was Charles de Gaulle of France, he started this whole movement in the 60s where he was like, fuck you guys. The
president of France?
The president of France.
Okay.
He called out the United States when the war that was going on, the Vietnam War.
Yes.
We were going through, and we had enormous deficits. We were printing money like crazy, and he's going, hey, you don't have enough gold in the vault to back your actions over here in Vietnam. I call bullshit. So he started ripping gold out of our vaults by the ton. And everyone else started doing the exact same thing. So everyone's sitting there saying, bullshit, America, you don't have that much gold. So they started ripping it all out. And in 1971, Nixon closed the gold window. Right?
What does that mean?
What that means that we defaulted on our promise to give gold $4.
Okay.
So that window is no longer an option. So what ends up happening? All of that money that we were secretly printing to fund the war in Vietnam,
right,
all came home. We had an enormous stagflationary cycle in the 70s and 80s,
Right.
where all that money started flooding back, and we were sitting there and we were panicking because the cost of everything exploded.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to be able, I mean, you guys probably have talked to your grandparents about how they were sent to a gas station with a can of gas,
The gas lines
a
and
quarter
shit.
and a can of gas, and you were able to get, you know, a Snickers bar, a Coke, and a gallon of gas for a quarter, right?
Yeah.
And then what ended up happening? Inflation, like
Yeah.
crazy. We had crazy inflation in the 70s. Now, this is where the rubber really kind of hits the road.
We
So-
are this close to being at those levels. Just to bring everybody back to reality. That was the last time inflation was as bad as it's ever gotten, and we are this close to being right there again.
So this last month we had a print of 8.5. The last time we had an 8.5% print was in 1981.
Whew.
1981, and people
that's just
argue
That's just the what do they call it? The consumer index base, right?
the consumer price and the CPI.
Yeah. Which is
And
like an
everyone argued-
amalgamation of a various amount of consumer products and this and that, and it's an average of that particular inflation.
And how they calculated CPI back in the day, which was a true representation of consumer price index, is what people actually use, right? The costs of you and me to live a fulfilled life, right? Fuel, rent, food, all of these sorts of things, right? Now what's ended up happening is in order to not suppress agenda, but in order to depict what politicians want you to believe, they have pulled things out of the CPI calculation, i.e., fuel costs and food costs. Right? Those two major costs have been pulled out of the CPI, which are the largest contributors of inflation. So now we get this dulled down number index, which is that 8.5,
Which is still high as fuck.
We're still high as fuck.
Yes.
Super fucking high.
Yep.
Without those two things.
My eggs have gone up more than 8.5 fucking percent. I'll tell you that much
Because
right now.
there's only is there individual commodities in the CPI? Because I've seen like bacon and shit like that is in there, right?
Yeah.
So they called it hedonic adjustments. So they argued this in the 80s. They said, okay, well, if steak goes up, people are just going to not eat so much steak. They're just going to buy chicken. It's like, no, bullshit.
Yeah.
These are the points that everyone is going with. Everyone agreed.
Oh,
these are staples.
Okay.
Yeah, so
These
if beef is hitting a 20%, they'll pull it out of the CPI because it's going to throw the average off. It's going to throw the curve.
Okay.
But in reality, people are still going to buy that fucking steak unless they literally cannot afford it, which thanks to credit cards is not a thing anymore.
So do they pull things out and replace them just kind of whatever works at the time?
You remember when used cars were a really big topic? Like they had
Yes.
jumped like 30%.
Yes.
And well, that's what's really affecting the majority of the inflation is this one commodity that's a really
So they
high
leave
spike.
things like that in there.
Yes.
Oh,
So
no
you can
fucking shit.
So you can a la carte that shit to
Ooh,
fit
okay.
whatever narrative
Alright.
you feel like.
Okay.
So the government is literally cooking the fucking books, and they're writing checks that they can't cash with our money, right? So they're
And the rest of
sitting
the
here
world's
and
money
like
from the sound of it.
It is so before this it was the world's money, but once we close the window, so I'll get into all that here in a second.
That makes sense.
So they're cooking the books, right? And everyone is realizing, oh fuck, we are in so much shit right now because we just financed a war that we can't foot the bill.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nixon closes the gold window in 71. We're getting massive inflation. Everyone's freaking out. Have you guys heard of Henry Kissinger?
Yes.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of
What do you know
bad
about
things
Henry
about Henry Kissinger. A lot of my the people I watch on a regular basis today have a problem with Henry Kissinger.
Right. So Henry Kissinger was Nixon's. He was an undersecretary to finance or something or other. I forget his exact position, but he was the mastermind of the petrodollar. So at the time, we were sitting there, and we were there was a handful of countries: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and a handful of other Middle Eastern countries that were running the whole oil game.
Yeah.
Right. Henry went out to Saudi Arabia, talked to the crown prince, and said, "Listen, you're selling oil for $10 a barrel. We want you to sell it for $50 a barrel." And he goes, "No, like that doesn't make sense. Something's a little weird here. Why would you want me to raise my prices? You're trying to put me out of business, right?"
Yeah. What kind of dumbass am I? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to raise my prices 500% overnight. Fuck you. That's dumb.
Right. That's dumb, right? So Henry gets this brilliant idea, and he says, "Raise your prices 500%, and what we will do is we will back you guys. We will protect you, your business, and the whole oil industry as long as you sell oil in dollars."
Mm-hmm.
He found out that the entire global economy runs on energy.
Yeah.
That's why oil has always been so important and will always be so important.
That's why it's important today, right?
Yep. He struck a 30-year deal for protection of Saudi Arabia in 74.
It's 74. Okay.
In 74. Let me see here. So he said that he was only going to sell, if they agreed to only sell oil in USD, then they could sell it for whatever they want. He made them stupid fucking rich.
Yeah.
Everyone in the whole world had to go back to the dollar because that was the only reason why that's the only way that they could that's the only way that they could purchase oil was with US dollars.
This is like a contemporary version of like cotton during the Civil War era, right? Oil is the new cotton. You get in on this shit. Everybody's a part of this. I'm assuming this is where OPEC's coming from.
Exactly. So we get into OPEC, right? So we protect Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia dictates prices, and in this group of this monopoly, OPEC, Nigeria, Qatar, Iraq, and a handful of other nations all set the price of oil, and they can fucking do whatever the fuck they want, right? And then we are making them stupid, fucking, filthy rich, intentionally. Now, I thought it was really interesting when we sit there and we'd say we would defend you guys militarily, right? And there's always these like little noxious like background comments that always get made by presidents. Oh, you know, our presence in Saudi Arabia, blah blah blah. And then I heard Trump sit there and say they're paying us for defense. I was like, whoa.
Defense of
what? We're basically fucking mercenaries here. You're paying us for our military? That isn't how this fucking works. We're fighters of freedom.
Yeah.
Right?
If we're going to be the world police, let us police freedom at least. I don't want to be mercs.
Right. So at this point, we have the petrodollar. Deflation decreases. It falls off a cliff. Our currency stabilizes in mid-80s, right? Paul Volcker raises interest rates to extraordinary highs never seen before in the world, 20-some%. So now there's a huge arbitrage opportunity for citizens where they could take their dollars, give them to lending institutions, get a high interest rate, and basically live off the interest, right? You haven't been able to do that since the 80s, and this is the reason why. Because it's an extremely rare event.
So, Ivan, let me interject real quick. You mentioned the name Paul Volcker. Can you just give us a little background on who Paul Volcker is?
So Paul Volcker was the last fiscally responsible head of the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
The last man standing.
It was the last fiscally responsible one of them. Currently, the current sitter of the seat is Jerome Powell, who is a fucking lunatic.
Yep.
And before him was Janet Yellen, and before her was Ben Bernanke, and then before him, Alan Greenspan.
Yeah.
So Greenspan is forever. He holds the fucking championship belt. You know, he freaking blew the most bubbles into our economy and fucked us up. We're still suffering from these bubbles currently. The housing market, the bond market, all of these things. He fucked us up horribly.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get into all that here in a second.
Yes.
So we're we're looking at the petrodollar, and everyone is using our money. So now we have to frickin' print a shitload of money for everyone to use for oil. Oil is the lifeblood of the whole global economy. Now everyone has a shitload of dollars, right? They're holding them in FX reserves. So their reserves are dollars. We have to print those dollars so that they have them. Those dollars are our tax money, right? So we have a shitload of liabilities out there in every country. Every country has billions and billions and billions of dollars. Most notably, Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll get into this a little bit, but
because they have so much oil.
Well, because they're selling their oil.
Yeah, because they're a producer and a seller of it,
Right.
which means they have to be paid in dollars because because of these fucks that we've been talking about. And so they have to be holding on to these dollars, which I could see the complication when the war begins, but that's later.
Now, what a lot of people are not understanding about what the big deal in 2020, 20 fuck. Where we at? 2000 August 2021 was Russia wins the defense contract for Saudi Arabia, right? Very innocuous. No one ever thinks anything of it, but that was the big turning point. So now Russia is defending Saudi Arabia, the largest oil producer in the world. Russia produces 30% of or 10% of the global amount of oil that's out there. And now when the United States sat there and they froze Russia's FX reserves, which means that they are no longer allowed to use dollars. That was effectively America defaulting on their obligation to pay bonds, right? So we have defaulted for the second time. First time was on gold, second time was on oil, right? Second time America has defaulted.
It's because
Russia takes control.
I'm just trying to like comprehend this, right? Because when we cut off Russia's, selling of oil to the world, right? That means that we cut off, like we owe them money at that point because they're still selling oil. And if the whole world is agreed that we're only buying and selling oil in dollars, the trade of oil didn't necessarily stop. The payments for the oil stopped.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, as a like a business owner, you're not going to stop work on a project just because they're like 30 days overdue on a bill. You're going to keep going, and then you'll get paid. For Russia, they're going to keep pumping. They're going to keep billing. They're going to keep billing their clients for the oil that they're selling, anticipating they will get money. And then the U.S. says, "Actually, we're not going to pay you."
Right, we're not going to pay you. And this being the second time that we've defaulted on our obligations for payment, right? And effectively, what ended up happening after that was Putin said, "Fine, you can." So there's so many ramifications of this. One being we have changed property laws. We had made. I mean, the world just watched. Biden steal money from Russia, and now it's okay. No one's talking about that. It's all right. And two, Russia went and said, okay, we are going to peg the ruble to gold. So we saw it plummet after the sanctions. It explodes back up after the peg.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about this briefly before. And he severed the link. He didn't sever it. He said he said it would now be negotiable. There's no longer a floor of 5,000 rubles per gram. Now it's negotiable, right? Which means basically it's a severing. So this whole thought process can be led into basically everything. Oil is the lifeblood, but in every other commodity spectrum, we talked about minerals, we talked about food, we talked about energy. I mean, we're talking about the basis of life, everything that everyone needs, the stuff.
Yep. Food, water, and power.
It's hard to really kind of grasp the gravity of all this, because literally everything, copper, aluminum, zinc, cobalt, all of it is now in question. I don't know if you guys happened to notice the nickel market 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I
Nickel
personally
market.
didn't notice, but I heard a couple of people talk about it when it happened. And they were
Yes.
like joking around, like, well, let's just buy a bunch of nickels because now the metal that it's made of is worth more than the actual nickel itself.
One nickel is worth 8 cents now.
I remember when we did this with the penny, man. We're crawling up.
That's what the penny is worth right now.
Wait till the dime takes the dive. You know, that ain't going to be too long. The one thing the
I
dime's
mean,
got
this is-
going is it's tiny.
Is a penny worth more than a cent now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when it was made of just copper, it was actually worth 3 cents to 1 penny.
But now it's all
Now
zinc,
that it's
right?
made-
Mostly
now
zinc
it's-
with a copper coating.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. Zinc is actually just about this got me into the whole commodity thought process 2 years ago, and I've been a freaking hound dog on commodities like you would not fucking believe. This bleeds into the short selling conversation about GameStop and selling what you don't own, shorting things, but also the whole world is shorting commodities, which is why nickel did what it did. When you sell something that you don't own, you have to buy it back. And if the price goes up, then you have to buy it at a higher price. And basically, what ends up happening is you create this negative feedback loop. The more that people buy, the higher that it goes. You have to pay that back. You have to buy that.
Yeah.
You're obligated to buy that, right? So the same thing happened to GameStop. The same thing happened to AMC. The same thing happened to everything. It's because we are living in a fake, manufactured, top-down, centralized economy. Like, people don't fucking get this.
Yeah.
When you can short stocks, when you can short commodities, when you can short the basis of life, when you can short food, like, I'm not joking, you can short wheat. You can't, like, it doesn't make sense. But you
Shorting
can.
wheat right now doesn't seem like a bad investment because we know there's going to be less next year.
Right, and people are doing it. But going back to the nickel example, you have to buy that. The people had to buy that back. There was a 2% short position on nickel. Now there is a huge short on zinc currently. The penny, huge. I think it's like 5%. So when the nickel exploded, it went from $20,000 per ton to $355,000 per ton.
And so
Not
when that happens, you tell your citizenry there's a national coin shortage, so make sure that you pay with exact change.
Why is everybody asking about the coin shorts? Because it's a fucking...
It was just one day that they're
Yep.
like, hey, there's a coin shortage. We don't have enough coinage, even though no one wants coins. And every time you have enough of them, you take them to Coinstar anyway. Or if you're really smart, you take them to your bank and you have them rolled out and you have them exchanged. Because no one fucking wants change.
No.
It's not like people keep forever enormous jars of change. They get a jar of change and they turn it in and they get rid of it.
So
and
this
then
is-
you get more change and you get the fuck rid of it. So
And this is tied to just the commodity known as zinc
So this
and
is
nickel.
This
and
is
nickel. Yeah.
zinc, nickel,
Copper.
gold, silver, copper, all of it, aluminum. I'm talking about everything. I'm not joking. When you dive down this rabbit hole, you do any sort of research on commodities, you find out that people, companies, individuals, speculators, everyone is shorting something in the thought process they can buy it back at a cheaper price. It is fucking terrifying. And then you add on top of this, we just printed 80% of the total number of dollars that were ever in existence.
Right.
So there's more money out there. The prices of commodities are going up.
Joe Biden
and
told
all
me
this
we
stuff-
took money out of the deficit. What are you talking about?
And that's another thing. The deficit. It's so Janet Yellen's speech, I forget when it was, but it was in 2017. I forget where she was at. She talked about how the United States was at risk of catastrophic failure, which means basically the whole country imploding in on itself because of the national debt. What did she do? She went and she fucking printed more money.
And now she is also of the
Treasury Secretary.
That's
Yes,
right.
and she's also of the economic theory that as long as GDP stays above your interest rate, then you'll be fine forever. Regardless of what your interest rate is, as long as you keep that GDP up, however you have to do it, it will be fine. Which obviously doesn't make any fucking sense.
No.
It's called modern monetary theory, MMT.
Just be ahead of your bills and you're good. Just print
Right.
more than you owe, and you'll be fine. Because you'll
According to
always be
modern
just ahead of the curve.
Right. According to modern monetary theory, MMT, you are as long as your debt to income ratio doesn't exceed like 105 or something like that. There's a point. There is a point on the scale, and it's above 100. And you can make your payments, and you can move money around, and you can make shit work, right? Right now, currently, we are at 128, 129. And I found out that every country in the history of the world has always collapsed once it hit 120%.
Well, yeah, because at some point it's got to be inevitable at that point. You know, if you hit 120%, it's over.
Right. You know, we're at 128, 129, and we're talking about printing fucking more money.
Hey, I'm an accelerationist, so I say let the printing press go burr. Let's just burn this MFR down and we'll start over again.
Right. So going back so I mean, everything is going up. People are freaking out.
Yep.
There's nothing that can bring stability. Have you guys ever seen Rick and Morty?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So Rick and Morty, there's an episode in there where they're on that alien, the mosquito or fly planet where Rick goes, "I'll fuck you guys up," and he changes all the zeros or all the ones to zeros.
Yeah.
Yes.
Done.
That's exactly what we're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm. Whereas if we were tied to gold, you couldn't necessarily do that.
You couldn't do that. Exactly. So tying this back to the whole gold argument, you need something that is stable.
Right.
That doesn't have a whole bunch of uses in industry, so you don't use it up on things.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to.
So that's why gold. Because there is no use to it.
Because it's kind of useless, but it's shiny and pretty.
You can say that it's valuable.
So it's the peg. It's the stability that everyone is after. So in it of itself, it is payment. It is the ultimate payment.
Only because there's a finite amount of it. That's really the big draw, is just that there's a finite amount of it.
Yeah.
And you can mine more of it, but at the end of the day, there still will be a finite amount of it, especially if we continue to make electronics and shit.
Right.
Ooh,
and that's the whole and that's the whole argument for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. It's
there's
that you
can
track
amount.
There's a finite amount. It's fungible. It's liquid. It's transferable. It's all of these things. People believe in it.
Yeah.
Right. And here we are with gold, and everyone for 5,000 years, everyone always runs back to it, and this is the reason why. It's because it is the stability. It is the true ultimate payment, the final payment.
Mm-hmm.
In Article, it's 100.1 in the U.S. Constitution. It states, and I don't know how they got around this. There's theories to it. It states that gold and silver is the only thing that can be used for payments of services and debt. The only thing.
Right.
So gold and silver, it is explicitly stated in our Constitution that gold and silver is it.
And that's how America is trying to fuck Russia, by saying if you want to pay your debts, you have to pay it off. That's how the world economic system is trying to fuck Russia by saying if you want to pay your debts, you have to pay it in dollars.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this, and it's okay if you don't know this, because I'm just thinking now, right? Because they backed their ruble in gold, and they were told by the world banks that you had to pay your debts off in dollars. If they can prove that a ruble, by being backed in gold, is worth more than $1, do they then have justification to say, fuck you, why can't I pay it back in rubles? Because my shit's worth more than yours anyway? Especially if the dollar has been destabilized as the petrodollar, like you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so they were given. Putin actually gave the ultimatum. He said, "Listen, you can use rubles or you can pay in gold." He actually gave the option. Either way, he wins.
Yeah.
Why? It destabilizes the whole West, all of the Western countries, all of them, because none of them have their fucking gold. We lent all of our gold out. God knows where it is.
Like a bunch of fools.
Yeah.
Canada doesn't have their gold. The London doesn't have their gold. I guarantee we don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're selling
that's
it to
all
everyday
speculation.
people for a profit. They're selling it out in little chips. They gave it to private companies like Acre Gold and shit that you can buy an ounce of gold over the internet for X
Yeah.
amount of dollars, and they send it to your house.
Listen to a conservative podcast and get your gold
It's
because
crazy
they have the
people.
connections.
That's who they sold all the gold to, is crazy people.
Oh.
People they thought
or,
were crazy.
or smart people.
Yeah, people they thought were crazy.
It's people that know the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
It's people that know what ultimate payment is. And what I found. So can I share my screen really quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can figure this out because we should be able to share it and then we'll watch it live.
Okay.
Watch stream.
Let's see it.
Boom skis. We're in it.
Yep. All right. So this is
Oh, I love charts and graphs.
okay. So you have I mentioned that the Basel III Accords made gold 1-to-1 with for value on balance sheets, right?
Okay.
And just out of curiosity, I heard someone talking about the BIS. The BIS is the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank's central bank. It is the top dog
Yeah.
in the whole world when it comes to money.
Yep. The Bank of London, the Fed, they all essentially
all
run
report.
through them.
Okay.
They all run to these guys. So
Yep.
the shareholders in the Fed, because the Fed is a private institution, just for everyone
Right.
else that's watching, there are people that actually own the Fed. It's a private institution. Same thing for the BIS. There are individuals in the whole fucking world. These are the real fucking oligarchs, the people who own everything. They are the shareholders of the BIS.
Oh, I hate everything so much.
Now, look at, what is it? Where is the total?
Balance at end of the year, land, buildings, and equipment. So this is like an assets report of the BIS?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So this is their cash on hand, their transfers, expenditures. But where is
Net book value at end of the year. Yeah, see, that's fucked up because the net book value is not the actual asset value.
So notice that everything here is priced in SDRs.
Will you zoom in just a little bit for us?
Yeah. Just boom.
That's
there we
perfect.
go.
Okay. So notice that everything is priced in SDRs. SDRs is the IMF's fake made up currency. It stands for special drawing right. And, right.
And they give
This
a
is-
shit
this
for
is how-
cryptocurrencies. Motherfuckers. Come on.
And this is how crazy this shit is. This stuff was made back in the 80s by Janet Yellen and her fucking cronies. This is just made up fucking money that is just, it's backed by no one and nothing.
It's just to
right?
standardize things for their own math.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it has value according to whatever. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not 100% up on
Whatever
it.
they
All I
say
know
it's
is that
worth.
Yeah. It's basically
Yeah.
the central banks probably the central banks the collective of central banks that run through the BIS use that specific currency because otherwise what are we looking at here? Like we're looking at like 16 digit numbers running left and right. I mean, they got to dumb it down at some point. And we just call it the
Octillions and shit.
SDR
Right. Damn.
in
Okay.
millions.
exactly. So they price all this stuff in SDR. That's their money. And if you, where is it at? I think there is a better point. I'll zoom back here in a second. And see gold swaps, gold equities, gold forwards. Oh my gosh, where'd it go?
Like the Vikings didn't know what the fuck they had when they had gold, but they wanted it. Like it's been around for so fucking long. God.
So I mentioned before that in 2019 the repo market blew up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the liquidity for the overnight lending liquidity. That was the precursor to the March collapse in the market, right? Well, after that point, every single central bank, because each country in the world has one. They all went on a buying spree of gold that has not been seen in the past 60 years. Like they bought more gold in 2020 than they had in the past 60 years combined, is what I'm trying to say. And if you look at their balance sheet right here, this is the BIS. This is the bank of all central banks. Look at what they were holding in 2020. 31,000. I don't know if this is tons.
That's millions. That's 31,000 millions.
SDR millions.
Yes.
SDR
SDR millions. And now they're sitting on this much.
Another fucking 10,000.
Another
10,000
10,000.
millions.
Yeah, and because I was curious, I was like, that can't be right. There's no way that they would be buying that much, or that they have been able to accumulate that much. So I went back. This is, and just so that you guys know, I'm going to go all the way so that we're on page 166.
The world government is buying gold.
This is a single report from 2021. It's 223 pages.
Right. I read the whole motherfucker.
Thank God for people like you, Ivan.
Him and Larry, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to get Ivan and Larry in a room together and have a lovely conversation. Just see where it goes.
So this is the global annual. This is the global financial annual report for 2020 and 2021. This is the global annual report for 2019 to 2020. This is what their gold holdings in 19. It was 7% of their total fucking balance sheet.
And it's 10.
This is what it was in 2020. Not 3%. And when we are talking about trillions of dollars, that is a monstrous number.
Yeah.
So what I'm telling you guys is that these motherfuckers have been accumulating gold like that hasn't been seen in history ever. And this is the central bank's central bank. I need to keep on stressing this.
Why are they doing that?
This is the biggest money in the whole fucking planet.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they doing that?
They're shorting out
Why?
the United States. They're short selling the United States. That's why.
They're shorting out the United States. This is the
dollar.
This is the power shift from east, or the shift from west to east. They are, because all of the currencies in the world have been destabilized. We're going to end up seeing massive runs on gold.
Mm-hmm.
And hold on, I think there's some other things I wanted to show you. This is the Davos agenda.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if we want to get into
Our
that.
friends, the World Economic Forum.
Yeah,
You will own nothing and be happy.
and you will be happy. This is how much it costs to get into the Davos. So it is open to the public. But
71
it just costs
grand.
71 grand to get a fucking ticket at the table. And then on top of that,
To hear them tell you they're going to take your life?
it's even worse than that. If you want a ticket to these special meetings where they talk about economic, major macroeconomics,
You're
it
a
can cost
strategic
$500,000.
partner. $500,000.
And this is just to get in.
Then you have to buy 5 tickets for $19,000 a piece. So bringing 5 people costs $622,000 to go to the brunch of colleagues, or to bring a bunch of colleagues.
Bro. All I'm saying, we could hold a brunch, bro, and we'll charge half that, and we'll be set for life. It's fine. We'll get Ivan up on Discord, and we'll get Larry up on Discord. We'll charge people $250,000, and we're the new Davos.
Right. Well, and this is the crazy thing that I'm trying to kind of draw between all of this, is that they want the elevation to say, hey, you can come to these meetings. You know, we made this public knowledge. Everyone can go. It's like, no one can go
Told
to
you
this shit.
that this was happening
Yeah.
Right.
in Davos.
We told you that this exactly, and these are annual meetings. These are annual meetings.
Oh
where
God!
they're sitting there and they're telling people about the ESGs, right? This is where all of the climate
ESGs and the
initiatives-
SDRs. Oh my God!
Well, actually,
the
just
acronyms.
to interject for a second, we've used EFGs a lot
yes.
throughout the day. I don't think we've ever kind of looked at them. Ivan, what is an ESG?
ESG is the environmental safety something or other.
It's basically a social credit score for companies, correct?
yeah,
exactly.
And they're
It is
using these for loans and shit now.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Isn't that fucking crazy?
Like the thing that's fucked up. I'm glad you're here because so much of this I've heard about in part, different elements of this throughout different stories, but never
Like all at once.
because I do so many other things, never have I taken the time to try and connect all of the various economic ties that I'm like, oh yeah, this is happening, and I heard about this, and also this is happening.
Soul crushing morosity achieved.
Well,
and we're
the
not
thing
done
is-
yet.
Yeah, you're not even close to done yet. And this is the truly like the depressing part of all of this is that it's all recency bias.
Yeah.
Gold has always for all of human history been the ultimate payment. And this is why I personally think that cryptocurrencies is they're a what's it called? A red herring.
Mm-hmm.
They are something to distract everyone while everyone is going for the gold.
Fuck
right?
yeah, the
Hey,
U.S.
look at
government
this.
is going to make a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
look at
It's even more
this
trackable than the
shiny-
dollar.
ding, ding, ding! You win the prize, buddy.
Look at all this this flashy thing over here while we grab all this stuff that's worth something.
You don't need gold. Give us your gold. We'll give you this crypto because that's what all the kids are talking about nowadays.
Exactly.
While
And-
old man Ivan tells you to buy gold.
I don't like this at all, bro. I don't like this
It's
one
terrifying.
Ooh,
You remember
we need
when
a
we were
Larry
sitting there-
Ivan debate is what that's going to be. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
bit. It's going to be epic.
Think about it. I mean, when was the last time that the United States government allowed? So, and I didn't even fucking talk about Gaddafi and
Oh, yeah.
and so
We put a
Dom,
rifle up his ass
Offie.
because he switched over to he wanted to switch to gold, so we had his people impale him with a bayonet.
Also,
Exactly.
rape
And-
him.
and
With a
rape him.
bayonet.
Because he wanted to sell oil for gold. What we do to people that go against the United States when it comes to our currency.
We let the
And
people
then
rape
what
them.
is going on with the cryptocurrencies?
I don't know.
Right. Why aren't they going through and why aren't they impaling people and dragging behind their cars?
Yeah.
when
It
comes to
begs the
cryptocurrency?
question. Why are legitimate governments adopting a cryptocurrency?
Point of order.
Point of order.
Point of order here. Do we know who actually made Bitcoin?
Nobody.
There's a guy's name that everyone has.
Not
It's not a real dude.
Not-
Nobody
No,
knows.
Not a real dude.
but that's the guy they've collectively assumed is the creator of Bitcoin. So
There.
not with certainty. no.
Ivan mentioned that to me, and then that got my mind going. Like, this has to be another fucking
Yeah,
CIA
Satoshi
experiment.
or something like that.
Right.
Like another CIA operation being done on an international level.
Right. And this was
that's being implemented on us.
Yeah. Well, the worst thing about it, when you really think
Satoshi
about it,
Nakamoto.
yeah,
Is
Satoshi
the
Nakamoto.
name used by the presumed pseudonymous person or persons who developed Bitcoin, authored the Bitcoin white paper, and created and deployed Bitcoin's original reference implementation.
We have a better idea who fucking Q is than we know who fucking Satoshi Nakamoto
Yeah,
is.
HBO did a documentary on that.
I know.
We
Definitely know who Q is.
we know who made Ethereum and every other cryptocurrency.
Right, because they're
Why
basing
can't we know
other
who
shit
the-
on that.
Yeah.
right.
I would think that
Many people have or have been claimed to be Nakamoto. I'm sorry.
I would imagine it's. I mean, if you were worried about a global currency destabilization because everyone's tied to the dollar, and so if the U.S. falls, the dollar falls, then you create a backstop that you can eventually invest in, and if you're lucky enough, you put that cryptocurrency out there for long enough for it to stabilize, so that when you do default on your own currency, there is less catastrophic damage because you have a relatively stable, finite, it's a place to have a soft landing. We'll put it that way.
Nakamoto owns between 750,000 and 11 million or 1.1 million Bitcoin. As of November 2021, that puts his net worth at up to 73 billion US dollars, which would make him the 15th richest person in the world,
So-
if we knew who he was.
You still don't have shit on Musk. What you're saying?
Well, so you can even, to Ivan's point, just to run with it, right? What it sounds like is you could even take a small fraction of that gold and use that as that 750,000 or 1.1 million Bitcoin. And it's only, and what we all say as like one of the talking points of Bitcoin is, you know, enough people have faith in it, it's only going to drop to X point. But it's only going to drop to X point if you have X amount of gold invested in it. That is the baseline of whatever. Does that make sense?
It follows, I think.
The base value of Bitcoin is going to be whatever the base value is of the amount of gold that you have invested in that market.
Yeah.
Which fools people into a perceived legitimacy of that market, which leads governments and whatever in to buy into it if they're not involved in this World Economic Forum thing.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, I think so, because if you essentially think of it as similar as the US dollar being a fiat currency and people's faith behind it, there's enough people that own enough Bitcoin that have enough faith in that market. It definitely tracks. I mean, they got fucking massive worldwide conventions to go and meet at these cryptocon currencies.
Happens in Miami every year, Bitcoin conference, whatever. That just happened last week, right?
And there's
Zuby was there and shit.
Yeah, that's right. Zuby was there with his smile and taking pictures with everybody.
Does that make sense to you, Ivan? Does that?
No, that makes a lot of sense, and it makes a lot of sense for companies to get behind this that have a ton of reserves, right? So much reserves that they would be able to buy up all of the global reserves of gold with what's on their balance sheet. So they need something. They need to create something to place their value in, right? That you follow? So if you were Apple and you had $200 billion sitting in a bank account, right? If you were to buy $200 billion worth of gold, that would be, I think that it's 3%, 4% of all of the gold ever mined in history. Doesn't make sense, right? So you need to create something. So when the dollar collapses, and like you brought it up, a fiat money never in the history of ever has a fiat dollar, or has a fiat currency standed the test of time. They've all crashed and burned, all of them, forever.
Yeah, why should the dollar be any different?
The dollar will not be any different.
Yep.
Because it's just perceived legitimacy.
Exactly. It is perceived legitimacy, and everyone is sitting here, and all of these people that are in the know, that understand what money is, that's why they're backing it. It's because this is the only way for them to keep what they have when the dollar falls.
And it still begs the question, why the fuck gold, man? It's
Right.
just historically, that's
It's
the
not
commodity.
going anywhere because you can't do anything with it. Especially if the world falls apart, you're not going to be making electronics anymore, so you can't do anything with it other than use it to buy shit.
Yeah, and it's the same. Like they didn't have electronics back in the Roman era, but it was gold coin.
That's so weird. It's weird because I guess I can't say that it's weird. It
would be
confuses
only
me a
weird if
little
people
bit
didn't use it.
Confuses me a little bit because it's the reverse of what I've always thought is why would you want it because you can't do anything with it, and you're saying you want it because you can't do anything with it.
Which means
want
it's
it because
solid.
it is a placeholder of value. It is so if you were to freeze your
accept
labor.
that.
Oh yeah. So have you ever heard the theory of currency?
No.
So it literally states that in order to freeze your labor, to freeze your value, when people were just trading goods for goods, right? And if you had chickens and I had oranges, and you wanted my oranges, but I didn't want your chickens, then there's a problem there.
Yeah, fuck
So
your
there needed
chickens,
to
bro.
be there needs to be a placeholder there so that I will accept some sort of medium.
Yeah.
And that thing has always and will always be gold and silver.
Because the less
Whatever.
useful, because the more useful gold becomes, almost the greater the value drop.
It'll
Because
be gone one day.
Well, yeah, because if it's a consumable, first of all, yeah, it's obviously going to be cheapened to some point because you're finiting down. It's going to be incorporated into a separate product, and that price can't throw over the rest of the product. If you use 1 ounce of gold building a brand new computer, and the price of gold per ounce is like $1,500 plus the rest of the other shit that you got to do and the labor costs and all this, now you got a computer that you can't sell because it's unaffordable. So it would bring the price of that overall commodity down. Whereas if it is as neutral as possible, then the value is about as stable as it could get, barring a massive societal default in its perceived value. And if it's never really been perceived to drop and being worth nothing, then society is much less apt to value it less. And gold is gold is gold. The Vikings wanted it. The Catholics wanted it. Everybody has always wanted gold, even when they couldn't do shit with it.
Right.
Begs the question, why?
Right.
Neutrality.
And I challenge you guys to go through and look up all of the central banks and how much they've been accumulating over the past 15 years.
I have a feeling I'm not going to like the answer.
It is terrifying.
Yeah.
Because this tells me, and it should raise some very, very large questions to everyone, that they know and have known for a very long time that this was going to happen. That's why the book, The Changing World Order by Ray Dalio is so incredibly useful, because he states in there he knew that this was going to happen a long time ago. In 2000, I think it was 2004, he said that we were on a crash course with complete and total disaster. Mm-hmm. He has it in a book. It's in writing from that long ago. I mean, people that are in these circles, they know what's going to happen. We're just fucking riders on the bus. And they want something that is going to distract everyone from the real value. Gold is meant for kings and states. Silver is the people's money.
Yeah.
That's the saying.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it, especially when you think about like the crown jewels and the jewelry that monarchs used to sport, and I mean kings and rulers and emperors over, all throughout antiquity. It was like you're gold and bejeweled. I mean, that's where the value truly lied, was in, how much treasure the kingdom could
accumulate.
Yeah. And
that's where the golden rule comes from. Yeah. He who has the gold makes the rules. Guess who has all of the gold in the world?
Global banks.
Most.
the China,
Russia,
and Russia. Great.
India.
In India. Which explains why at this point in time we find those three of them being strange bedfellows.
These are the correlations that you have to draw between everything. Yeah. And this is why I told everyone early on, it was just a gut feeling that I had that all of this COVID bullshit, it's so manufactured and fake. And you have Bill Gates coming through and saying that there's going to be a pandemic. I think it was like 18 months before COVID actually happened.
Yeah.
He's sitting there and he's telling everyone that there's going to be some sort of super communicable disease that's going around. And he's telling people at these conferences at Davos that this shit's going to happen. It's
goddamn Davos folks.
Bull fucking shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a completely manufactured situation. There is something out there that is causing people to get sick and they're dying, yes. But this whole situation was manufactured, and it was based on the 100-year theory of pandemics. Mm-hmm. First, you had the Black Plague in the 1650s. 1750s were, the 1620s. Then you had the 1720s with cholera. Then you had, the plague, cholera, the Spanish flu in the 1920s, and now this. And it's every 100 years. Every 100 years, there's this a large pandemic. And based on this cycle, pushed this thing out that it was very believable, and it felt perfectly in line with the fourth turning, with this with
that Strauss-Howe generational theory, and all this.
With all of it,
all of it, because it's easy enough to look through. I mean, just a general glance at antiquity, and you could build a general timeline to between 180 years, there's going to be a massive, global conflict. And why would it not be based around currency when historically it always has been?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would today be any different?
All about power.
Yeah. It's all about who owns the fucking gold, who has the gold. God, I'm about to become Ian real quick, bro. Telling you, I'm going to grow my hair out. I'm going to be a hippie. I'm going to talk about graphene a lot.
Dude, it's crazy, man. It really, truly is. Like, and to me, being a, oh my gosh, a contrarian is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
You go, so I invest a ton of money in markets. And the thing that you need to invest in is the thing that everyone hates and is not talking about. What people are not talking about is energy, oil, gas, the commodities. They're starting to, because they're starting to see it go parabolic with all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And gold. Why? Yeah. Because there's Bitcoin to talk about. There's other things. There's more sexy things that are out there. That means that all of the money flows are over here on one side at one extreme, and they're going to flow back at least to equilibrium, if not farther.
Man, I cannot wait till 5/4 today, because I've been watching a lot of Attack on Titan, and there's so many parallels to this. I can't even begin. You're gonna watch this fucking show after this, because you're gonna be like, how am I not watching this? It's because okay, before I dive down that rabbit hole, let me ask you a question.
Okay. When
it comes to currencies, right? Essentially, the picture we've been building at this point is everything has always been and will continue ever forth being reliant on gold. These kind of useless precious metals. What, in your mind, use your imagination if you can, what would be a better, more neutral way to base a currency on? What is something that could work at this point? I mean, because we need a currency to run a capitalist system. We need a relatively easy and mathematically correctable formulation. We need some kind of commodity that we can base how we do everyday buying and selling and trading and loaning and this, that, and the other thing. If gold is so full of conflict, for lack of a better term, is there another way we could do economics without some kind of finite, useless bullshit?
Well, and see, that's a very interesting point, because the whole basis behind Bitcoin is that it's a ledger, mm-hmm. where everyone transacts, and there's a list of transactions on it, right?
The blockchain.
And the blockchain.
Yeah. We still can't find the people that are holding companies at ransom, and they need Bitcoin or they need some kind of crypto or something like that. We can't find them yet, but
right.
But the ledger exists.
The ledger exists. So and another thing to this whole gold argument is that there is no counterparty risk, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
If you're in possession of the gold, then there is no other counterparty that says that you don't have it because you're physically holding it, right?
Yeah.
With the blockchain, the backing to the blockchain itself, the ledger, is energy.
Yeah.
It's an energy contract, right? You have to have energy to run the blockchain.
If there's no power, it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a constant draw on the system. So this is what the argument that Elon Musk was making. Yeah. He was saying that when you mine gold or you mine commodities or you mine whatever, right, and you're extracting it, refining it, turning it into an ultimate product, that energy is sunk, and then you never have to sink it again.
Yeah. You get a return on your investment. You invested a lot of money getting your gold, but you will get your money back.
Oh, fuck.
Right.
Because it's just as you're talking, I'm just sitting here thinking, Bitcoin is even more like gold than I thought gold was, because if it's truly only useful if there is still, like you were saying, electricity
Yeah.
and some type of economy for it to be used in. Because if the world really goes to shit and there's no electricity, then Bitcoin really doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
Even less shit than I thought gold meant.
One EMP, bro,
means-
fixes
it
the whole
means that
thing.
you are the holder of counterparty risk. You are the holder of counterparty risk, nothing else.
Yeah.
That's the terrifying part of this.
Oh,
and
that's
guess
so
what we are short
stupid.
right now? And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about energy. Russia's holding the keys to all of the energy, right?
Yep.
They have all the oil, the natural gas, the uranium. Dude, this is
And
the terrifying
gold.
part.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, buddy. And the uranium. That's important too, because if we want to pursue nuclear energy, we need fucking uranium.
Right. Dude, this is what people don't think about these things.
Yeah.
And people are talking about fucking EMP attacks. And if we truly do get into a world war,
It ain't gonna be waged with nukes. It'll be something like that shuts the power
Cyber
down.
attacks that they're talking about and shit. Ooh,
Dude.
ooh, son. Ooh, son.
Told you, crushing morosity, bro. That's what you come here for.
dude, it's all about counterparty risk. All of these countries around the world had counterparty risk because
Liability.
they trusted the United States to hold their gold. And what did the United States do? They sold it. They lent it out. They gave it away. They didn't have it, right?
I feel like America is like the creator of like the white collar crime, and of
Assholes.
course
Yeah.
we're the ones that, yeah, we'll hold the whole world's gold. It's not a big deal, and we'll Bernie Madoff your ass. My bad.
Yeah. Right.
Come
We're gonna
at me,
print too
bro.
much of it.
We still have the
What are you
best
gonna do
weapons.
about it?
Exactly. That's not a good way to live, dude.
No. And I mean, this is just one section of, I started
it's-
getting into the food side of things, but like this was the meat and potatoes, but I mean, there's a whole agricultural side of this thing as well that we didn't even touch on.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It like this thing all folds in on itself. And what we've created is this like 7-layer cake of bullshit that at the very, that's the Exeter. Hold on. Let me see if I have it. John Exeter is the guy's name. He was the central bank head before Volcker, Paul Volcker. He has you can look it up sometime. It's called the Exeter Pyramid, and this was back in like the 30s and 40s. They were talking about how, the guy said that as soon as we left the gold standard, he basically saw everything. He knew exactly how this entire thing was going to end. And he made his pyramid. It's called the Exeter Pyramid, and at the very base of it is gold, and then on top of it, set in like layers, is the U.S. dollars. It's the treasuries and bonds, and then derivatives, and then you get the very fucking top where there's quadrillions of notional dollars of liabilities, and Medicare, Medicaid. You have all of this shit that we don't have the money to pay back to the people that have paid into it. Right, the money's gone,
Yeah.
and when this thing collapses, the only thing at the base of the pyramid, the bedrock of our financial system, the center of the financial universe, is gold, and we don't have it.
I wish I would have listened to like Glenn Beck back in the day when I had some spending money and he was telling me to buy like all sorts of gold at the time on Fox News. Yeah, I know. Well, let me ask you this. I know a lot of people in my own personal life that, are essentially priced out of the market of gold because, let's face it, that's for kings and governments to participate in. So they got into the silver market. Silver seems like it's essentially generally like a second-class citizen to everything we've been talking about today, but it's still going to be around. If gold is going to be the king, silver is queen, and if the plebs need currency, they default to silver. Silver and gold essentially seems relatively safe right now. So, I guess I'm just having a hard
Just
time
as-
processing everything that just happened. That was
Well, think about this. So, I mentioned that all commodities are at all-time highs.
yes,
All of them.
all of them.
Every single one of them.
It's
They're
stupid
at
fucking
or
corn.
very close to, including gold.
Yep.
It's either at an all-time high or very close to it. Guess which ones are not?
The precious metals.
Silver, platinum,
platinum.
Gold is at an all-time high, but there's a reason for that. It's because people believe in silver.
Yeah.
It was the pocket change of the plebe in America. It's still in circulation now. You can't find it readily anymore, but it's still out there.
It's been regarded as a form of money and store of value for more than 4,000 years.
Ugh.
And guess what? This is another pocket change argument. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Nickel is exploding. The penny already exploded, but before these two things, silver.
Yep. And I would have
You
a
guys-
feeling that, things, especially if the USD essentially defaults, the penny and the nickel and stuff aren't going to be worth anything other than the raw materials they're made with.
Which is more
Their
than what they
elemental
were worth
value.
before anyway.
Yes. The elemental
Exactly.
value. Oh, buddy. I feel real good about
Stop
life right
paying
now.
in exact change.
Yeah.
Only pay with paper money. And
Do not
always
round up.
Get coins back.
Yep.
Say, can I have as much change as you will give me?
Oh, I'm looking at my change jar and it's woefully
Because I
underfilled.
can sand the copper off the outside of that penny.
And it'll be worth money.
Ooh, that's fucked.
Oh, buddy. Ivan, I would love to get you and Larry Dixon on here to talk about
Good
this
old
stuff.
buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know each other.
Oh, yeah. Fuck
We went to
yeah.
school together.
You people and your Central Kids app, I don't
Yeah, you're the
I don't
outlier
recognize
here.
nobody.
Yeah.
I lived up here with the redneck blue collar folk, all right? I'm a working man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No working class people in Bremerton
Amen.
at all, right?
Not even a little bit.
Get out of here,
Yeah.
Colin.
What's the most expensive building in Bremerton? The City Hall?
So that makes people
That's
not working
that's
class? What are you
correct, by
talking
the way.
about?
I'm just saying. Governments, they
I
own
thought
all
it
the
was
money.
Taco Bell.
Oh, Taco Bell.
To where the most money's been spent.
Yeah. And still, I don't fuck with Taco Bell. Oh my God. All right. So I'm looking at the live stream. We're saying 6:38. I think this is a good time to wrap up the official live stream of the show.
Yeah, are there any closing notes that you have for us, Ivan? Any suggestions?
Yeah, how do I not end up on the popular side of things when shit hits the fan here?
All I gotta say is the best thing that you could possibly do is educate yourself. I want
That's a good
everyone
answer.
in this forum, you guys included, everyone that's watching this, I want you to go and pick up Ray Dalio's book and read it, because you'll get a window into what's going to happen. And just as a reference point, Ray Dalio made his billions of dollars in the derivative notional markets. So he is not he's not a commodity guy. He has never made a dime on gold and silver, but he knows the history. He's done the studying, and there's hundreds of people that are out. I mean, millions of people that are out there that all agree with him, but he gives a very, very, very compelling argument for everything that I'm talking about right now.
Well, I am certainly adding that to the Amazon list. I'm actually going to see if it's on Audible first, because I generally can run through the fuck on an audiobook, and it takes me a while to finish a book because I am undereducated, I guess.
Make sure that you wear a diaper when you read it, because you're going to shit your pants.
Thank you so much, Ivan. You have filled me with so much hope today. But realistically, all sarcasm aside, this has been, and I'm not going to assume, obviously, that you're the end all be all here, but you've given me so many more avenues of things to go pursue. Like you said, I like the way you put that, where you said, your only advice is to educate yourself. And I fully stand by that message, and I'm going to continue to educate myself on this. I'm definitely buying that Ray Dalio. Is that how you say his name? Dalio.
Ray Dalio.
Yeah, Dalio. I'm going to buy that book. I've got a couple more on order, I think, after this conversation. And I, for one, am incredibly thankful for just essentially having you come into my brain right now with the crowbar, crack it open, and say, hey, think about this.
Sorry.
No. That is the greatest thing that I could have asked for. Are you kidding me? Somebody that has a problem with finding an area that I don't know much about and just going, I need to learn everything I possibly can about this subject. Let's dive in. I am very, very excited about the days to come, days, weeks, months to come, because I am going to I'm going right in. I've got a number of people that are involved in, we'll say, this world or, careers that are adjacent to this, and bring them into this conversation and to keep these conversations going and to build off of them. I'm very excited about that. So I really, really, really appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure to meet you. Zeke, it's great to see your face, bro. It's
finally.
It's been a long time coming. I'm very excited about it. Processing. Where's the spinning blue wheel of death?
No, that's a lot to think about.
It is.
It's a lot of that is the complete opposite of the way that I was thinking about a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah. It's good to have those, I need somebody to come in there and be like, hey, I need you to think again about cryptocurrency. I want you to think about the totality of this thing. Follow the gold trail.
Yes.
I'm gonna see. I watched, my wife had a back injury earlier this week, so we actually sat on the couch one morning while she was like writhing in pain, and we were watching Disney movies, and the first one she put on was Alice in Wonderland. I found my white rabbit, and I'm going down the rabbit hole on this one. I'm there.
I want to end on that. I want to end on that. That was perfect.
Like I said, guys, I'm not saying that I'm an expert in this subject at all. I didn't even study this in school. This is just stuff that I found along the way, and I am open to new things and different opinions, and I could be wrong on it. But all I know is that this is what I have found.
Yep. The plus side is if you're wrong, there's no real harm. If you're right, you have everything to gain.
Yeah, no, and we're definitely going to bring you back soon, because I think the conversation between you and Larry would be extremely interesting.
Holy shit, that would be epic.
Yes.
Interesting. So that's something I would very much like to organize. Larry also uses Signal, so I will probably
I'll get him on the Discord. It'll be fine.
tie these things together to try and organize a way for you guys to come on here together, because I'm very interested in that conversation.
Yeah, I need that in my life.
Yes. So unless you guys have anything else that you want to add onto this, then I want to thank you both again for being here. Thank you, everyone, for who watched this today. Everyone who's in the chat, it was fantastic. YouTube.com/saltofthestreets. Saltofthestreets.com for all the information. Patreon.com. Those are really the important things. Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. So thank you, everyone, and thank you guys for being here today.
Word. If you guys want to stick around for part 5 of 4, you are more than welcome, but do not feel obligated. It has been almost a 7-hour stretch, so we love you. Thanks for hanging out. Everyone else, Asta.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat everything.